Hello, everyone. This is Morris Greenberg, and I am commentating this round with Rafi Stern.
Hello, how's it going, everybody?
They can't respond back, unfortunately, but we can see your comments. Feel free to comment in the comments section. As I've often liked to do with Will Anderson, we like to have little prop challenges before the start of games, and we'll get this in quickly. It looks like they're shaking the tiles right now. If you guess which two letters are the blanks in the comment section, that'd be great. We're doing a point system based on the Scrabble tile value. So an E would be worth 1 point, a Z would be worth 10 points. And if you guess both the same letter, we double it. So if you aren't going to guess two different tiles, but instead two E's, and you get that right, both were E's, we'll make it 4 points instead of 2 points. But it looks like they're picking tiles. So why don't we say if you do it in the next 2 minutes, you can continue guessing, assuming that a blank isn't one of their first tiles drawn. And then we'll close it for this round. Oh, it is. So never mind. So the guesses we got. Okay. We'll let that last one from Natalie Zed count. And that'll be it.
I think it's okay because Josh is not going to use the blank on this turn. He doesn't have a bingo right now. So
yeah, that's true.
Figuring out what the blank is going to be, there's no real way of knowing right off the bat.
Yeah, and so actually Josh looks like he just exchanged 3 AOO. I think that's a perfectly fine move. I also tend to like to, with the blank, if you have, like, if you're exchanging and you have a lot of vowels, I'm fine keeping 2 vowels and 1 consonant, but I know it's different among different people. Rafi, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends a bit on what the vowels are. I think if you keep an A and an E together, those generally work out pretty well. But other than AE specifically, or maybe IE, keeping an extra vowel usually doesn't work out too well.
I guess with a blank, it's different than without a blank for sure, too. And it looks like Jackson made a move of Jinx. Also looks really reasonable. He had 3 power tiles there. So getting rid of 2 of them is actually a good thing. While power tiles by themselves tend to be pretty great, when you have too many of them together, it actually kind of slows you down a lot. So getting rid of 2 of the 3 is pretty good.
And Josh has drawn a duplicate N and 2 duplicate E's. Not really what he was looking for after a blank exchange, and it doesn't look like he has any bingos right off the bat here.
Yeah, by Jackson not playing the D, actually, on his rack last turn, he definitely prevented Josh from getting any bingos, I think, right? With a D, he'd have some 8s like neatened or needed. So good on Jackson to not play that last turn because it's going to work out better for him this coming turn.
I wonder what Josh is looking for here. Is he going to play Annex? He doesn't have any great
I might just play
players.
AE. I might just play AE, X, and N.
But he does opt for Annex. Oh, with the E at the end. Which
interesting. I like that.
Even though
I like that a lot. Yeah, it opens up another side of the board completely, right? Even if Jackson cashes in, all of a sudden you can make parallel bingos along that, where it would be much harder to make a bingo parallel to Jinx because it needs to be J-O is the only 2-letter word that would fit parallelly, so you need an O to either be the last letter or second to last letter there. And so Annex either allows you to hook off of the E directly for easy 7s, or if Jackson plays and scores a few points, most of the time you'll be able to make a parallel bingo. Although in this case, if Jackson does play coded like he has set up on his rack, might not work out because the C takes no front or back 2-letter words.
And it looks like even though Josh started off with a blank and Jackson started with an awkward QJX opening rack, it looks like Jackson's going to be able to get enough of a lead to where after Josh's bingo, he won't even be that far behind.
Yeah, and the chat pointed out when I said it needed, that isn't even good in Collins. So I am definitely rusty. Ignore what I say half the time. The other half the time, take it with a grain of salt, I guess, or something. But it looks like Jackson's indeed playing coded, which also blocks the word that Josh set up on his rack, Indomine, through the I in Jinx. And so we'll see how Josh will react to that.
He has Amandine through the A. I wonder if he has anything else better. I don't see anything through the N right off the bat. but there might be a play there that I'm not finding right away.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything right away either. If you see anything in the chat, feel free to point it out. We're always glad to see people participate. But yeah, Rafi made a really good point that all of a sudden, even though Josh looked like he was in the driver's seat at first with the blank, Jackson has made two high scoring plays right away, and Josh needs to start catching up and can't just keep fishing turn after turn because Jackson could keep building that lead on a even more closed board. And bingos are only good if you're within bingo range. So, or within bingo point range. So, uh, it's going to be interesting to watch how Josh tries to do damage control here to put him in a good enough position when he can catch with the bingo.
Will he find Amandine? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Amandine is a playable bingo that I can see right now. Will he find it? One thing that's interesting is in a situation like this where you have a blank and a bingo potent rack, you might want to take a long time to find something, but if there isn't anything there, trying to balance how much time you use with just giving up and finding a non-bingo play can be very tricky as time comes into play very greatly in the pre-end game.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I've definitely been the type to look for maybe too long sometimes, and also just to move on too quickly and then realize a turn later, oh, I had these 4 bingos that I just missed. How did I do that? So in any situation, you could think I should do either one thing of looking for a long time, then accidentally wasting a ton of time, or not looking anymore and then realizing later, why did I do that? I could have bingoed. So it'll be interesting to see what Josh does here. I guess let's think about what Josh could do if he gives up on seeing the bingo. What are sort of the best courses of action here? Do you see, Rafi?
Maybe dinned off the D, hits the triple, 27 points.
Yeah, and it
That's
definitely
one
opens a
option.
lot of lanes too. That's a really nice idea.
Yeah. I imagine if he misses Amandine that he will play Din, but it looks like he probably wrote down right now on his score sheet Aadinn blank and is just staring at it, trying to figure out is there anything there? A lot of expert players will alphabetize their tiles because in studying, that's the common way that letters are presented in online studying when you type in anagrams. So players who go on Aerolith and practice every day, they're going to see, oh, looks like he found it.
Looks like it's getting it down. Yeah, and one nice thing about this situation in some ways was he had 2 different letters he could play an 8 through, and 1 spot for 7s. He would have needed to make 4 2-letter words under annexed. So that actually gave him a very targeted search of what he had to look at. So while Rafi was pointing out maybe he was writing down those 7 letters and thinking what bingos there were in there, he could actually quickly discern, okay, most of these probably wouldn't even fit under those 4 2-letter words. And then he looked at the 8s probably, and that's when Amandine clicked. And it looks like Jackson responded right away with a pretty natural play of QI both ways for a bit over 40 points. And that actually puts Jackson right back in the lead. So it's good to remember while bingos are really cool and flashy and score a lot, sometimes just scoring every turn does just as good, if not better, of a job.
And Josh has a rack where if there was an open Y, he'd have Yakitori, which would be a fun play, but there is no available Y, so he will have to play a non-bingo. But he has a great option of Dakwait off the D, which scores quite nicely. It looks like it would be 40, 45, 48, 48, yeah.
Yeah, 48. That's probably going to be the high point play here. And if he sees that, I can't envision him opting for anything else.
And I imagine he will see it.
Yeah, it's the kind of play where once you have these kinds of letters that are kind of clunky, you start looking at all the words, right, like Yakitori or Troika, as pointed out in the comments, that naturally put all those weird letters together. And Dacoit should scream out to Josh in this situation. And
he
it
finds
looks like he's putting it down now.
Good play, Josh.
And so this is now going to be a very close game. It looks like right now these past few turns have kind of been a tempo game where one player goes up by 10 to 20 points, then the other player goes up by 10 to 20 points. That's what kind of scoring in the 30 to 40 point range does. So we'll see if it continues. This looks like Josh is getting some nice synergistic tiles. Oh, except that last eye isn't quite as good.
Well, he has Reifies.
Yeah, and Fieriest to the T and Dacoit.
So Josh will bingo on his next turn no matter what.
Yeah, so what should Jackson do here? This looks almost like a great rack, but it's 1 R2 off or something.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an awkward rack. Not terrible, but not quite amazing. And there aren't amazing places for him to play these letters either. He could play Kefir off the K is one option. Not great, though. 24 points for Kefir.
How about Filar off the A and Amandine?
Oh, yeah. Filar looks a lot better. 24 points, leaving H-E-R. The H is a great tile. Oh, and
it looks like
here he goes.
And he does use the R. Yeah. It's better in this case to not hold 2 R's than give yourself a hook. So good on Jackson to play Filar. And and I'm guessing Fiery should come down fairly quickly here.
Agreed.
We'll see if Josh is coming up with anything else that we didn't see right away.
He's spinning the board around and around. Oh, there we go. And it comes down immediately.
Also, I forgot to check. I think someone guessed an M in the blank guessing, so it looks like Alex Seaholm guessed an M. I'm not sure if anyone else did. So Alec gets 3 points already. Again, I said the prize for that was choosing which division in NOLA Will plays next year. Now, I did not say that we have not run this by Will yet, so we'll see his thoughts about it. But, he's a pretty understanding person. He's very good with compromise. So I think Will be okay with choosing his NOLA division next year based on what the comment section wants him to do.
It looks like Jackson is looking at playing Hauberk to the K, which is a beautiful play.
Yeah, I am definitely rusty. And those are the kinds of words that I would not remember these days. So definitely good of Jackson to see that right away. Are you seeing anything else that could be worthwhile to think about?
Not yet, but he does. There are a lot of scoring places on the board, so I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few other options that are close. But Hauberk looks like a great first option to me. Are there any good parallel plays next to Fieriest?
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. The W is kind of an awkward tile there for that right now, just because there's so many I's and W and I do not make a 2-letter word. So if he's trying to get rid of the W, that'll be a bit tougher, I think. But there's some suggestions in the chat. So Halberd and Halbert are being thrown out. I'm not actually seeing where those would play right away. Is there a place to play through an L and a D or an L and a T?
There's only one L on the board, so I don't think that would play anywhere.
Okay. That's not a suggestion. I think Alec was just saying some related words. Got it. Yes. Variants of the same word. Got it. Understood.
Another interesting thing about this matchup is that Josh and Jackson are good friends and have actually played each other 60 times in tournaments live, as well as hundreds of times for fun. So they know each other's game in and out.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to always watch them. There's, I think, sometimes a meta game with people that you play a ton, and Josh and Jackson definitely fit that bill of trying to sometimes not be predictable, right? Because if you play someone so often and know you're going to play them a lot in the future, sometimes it's okay to sacrifice a point or two of equity for the purpose of being more random and not necessarily making yourself guessable. If it's harder to guess what you're going to do, it makes it more frustrating for your opponent to figure out a strategy of how to play you. So that's always fun when you know you're playing someone. A lot of times it's more like the true chess match when people say like the chess match aspect of the game. Going back and forth and not being predictable is definitely a fun thing when you play someone so often. And the comment section is pointing out what Jackson has set up on his rack now, which is not good in NWL, which is, I don't know how to pronounce this, HUAWEI. Jackson might be being cheeky, but you never know. I've definitely seen him accidentally phony here and there. And thank you, Jesse
He's
Matthews, for
thinking
pointing
about
out that
it.
that's Huawei.
Oh,
And
he's
it looks
playing
like he's just going to
Hallberg.
go with
Nice.
Hobberk, though. So, yeah. Hobberk actually, another interesting thing about Hobberk is it actually isn't great for opening lanes in a lot of ways because the E and the R at the end of Fire Wrist are two nice letters for ending eights, whereas the A, U, and H are not great letters for the end of eights. So we'll see if there are plays that go through Hobberk to allow for more bingo lanes, but at least in the very short term, this actually makes the board worse for 8-letter words.
And Jackson has drawn some pretty ugly tiles, but he did draw an S, which, if he can eventually clean up his rack, could help out a lot.
Yeah, it will definitely be something to monitor. And sadly for Josh, datacast I don't think is a word, although I guess the A doesn't quite fit. But
Datacast is not a word.
yeah. I think data casting is a somewhat common like phrase, but not acceptable in Scrabble yet. So, what should Josh do here? He could do cased and QIS. It scores a lot.
Cased and QIS scores 36. Good play. It also takes out the F lane, an F play down to the triple, which is one good bingo lane. It's pretty hard to end a word in F. So if you want to use the F to hit a triple, you pretty much have to start with it.
Yeah, or it needs to be a compound word of some sort.
Like meatloaf.
So, yeah, meatloaf. Yeah, exactly. Right. I guess to hit the triple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sans serif. I guess that even is kind of a common word, or a compound word. But yeah, you almost always will need some sort of compoundness to end an F. Or yeah, double F word. And yeah, the QIS spot, it doesn't look dangerous. It looks like it's hard to fit, but it actually really isn't that hard if you have an S. And so it's probably a good thing to get rid of that lane long term, considering that there are 2 S's and 1 blank still unseen to Josh. It scores a lot now.
Ooh,
And interestingly, Josh might not go for cased, but it looks like he might opt to use the T instead for tased.
Interesting. I prefer dropping the C because it's 6 more points and 2 T's isn't terrible. But there are still 3 T's unseen, so he might be worried about drawing a third.
Yeah, I guess what specific advantages do the C have on this board? That H that Jackson now has just blocked might have been a reason to keep the C. Maybe the L in Filar is a reason, right? CLE words or something. Maybe the I in Filar, IC words. So maybe Josh's thought process is the C is a more valuable tile relative to other tiles than most of the time. But I'm not sure I see that necessarily on this board. It'd be interesting to hear from Josh's perspective.
Yeah. And Jackson played a WoW, which blocks what Josh would have been able to play of Stomachy. That would have been a nice bingo. But now he is not able to play that anymore.
Yeah, and the comments section's actually making a really good suggestion from last turn was WoW better than WOG, W-O-G, to get rid of doubling of G's. I'm not sure. That's a close call. I know different people have different opinions on how bad doubling is. But the W is a tile that's going to not be great on this board after that point, just because there aren't that many 2-letter spots. So I could definitely see the reasons for getting rid of both W's right away.
And I also prefer WoW too. Scoring more points. And I mean, is GG that much worse than WG? I really don't think so.
Yeah, WG seems worse to me, just from intuition, but I'm not sure of the specific valuations off the top of my head. And people are pointing out that Buggiest is also available, which I guess that is an advantage of GG. You can use GGY words in their superlative extensions. So Buggiest might be able to play next turn if Josh doesn't do anything about the I that's available.
And he may not. He has good scoring plays on the right side of the board. He could potentially play MY, parallel to Fieriest, which would score 32 points.
The chat might have heard NY. We said MY.
MY.
NY is indeed Collins, but we are talking about MY. And the chat also pointed out Saitomas. I'm pretty sure that
is not.
Yeah, I don't think that that's good.
That is not valid. So Josh is down to 11.5 minutes, while Jackson still has 17.5. This could come into play later in the game.
Yes, it definitely can. It will be interesting to see how Josh will respond with time. I think Josh is actually pretty good at playing quick when need be, but it's always better to have more time, though, if it's an option.
And usually having more time. Ooh, what is he doing? Interesting block of the board. I like it. I like it. He took out the O lane and the I lane and makes it very, very difficult to open the entire right side of the board because none of the words over there take an S hook or any hook. So the right side of the board is completely done for a couple turns. However, Jackson is able to get down Buggiest on the complete other side of the board to essentially even the game.
Yeah, this will now be very close, and Josh picked the one downside of easy is the A and the S kind of united all of those tiles together, and the Y to some extent too. C, T, O, M are slightly clunky, and Josh only made that worse by picking up 3 constants with that. So he now has tiles that kind of can all work with some tiles, but don't really work as a unit right now as a whole.
Had Buggiest not come down immediately, Josh would have had the possibility of shutting down the entire board. But because Jackson was able to hit Buggiest just in time, now it's a tie game on a closed board, which could be interesting. And Josh has a very easy... I was about
What were you going to say?
Yeah, sorry. Josh has a very easy play of just dropping the Z on the bottom left, Zin and Za for 46 points.
Yeah, that looks very reasonable. I guess one question with those kinds of plays is, I mean, obviously it's over 40 points, so definitely worth it on its own. But you also want to think what one tile could you draw that would make your situation much better with that? Just because if there is a longer letter play, that option will probably still be available next turn a lot of the time. So it's sometimes worth it to look at other options. If you could get rid of like 3 constants in the O, it still might be worth doing that sometimes. But I think Zinza would make a lot of sense here.
And the pool is a bit vowel heavy as well, so leaving 5 consonants isn't going to hurt him as much. He's about 50-50 to draw a vowel based on the pool.
Right, but one point of that rack is drawing an E instead of a Z actually does give him a 7-letter word. I don't think it plays at all on this board, but that is something that's super valuable to recognize. That if you're going to drop one tile down, you could actually get bingos your next turn, for instance. Also, while we are waiting to see what Josh does here, oh, well, it looks like Josh's going to play Mulked, but one reminder is to go to the straw poll that was just posted in the chat to vote on who you want to see playing next. Your votes will directly correspond to who you get to see on stream, so vote away.
And he does decide to delay the Z play.
Yeah, and this will be interesting to see what he'll do with that now, because he has some weird letters together. He just drew 2 U's and the blank. So, some good, some bad. We will see how he will handle it. But Mulked, I was going to say Mulked does one really interesting thing, which is it actually gives Jackson very few scoring spots. It's a kind of closed board play. And sadly, that one of the last spots now is the Zinza spot. So I don't know if I love that play, partially because it kind of forces Jackson to look in the spot that Josh doesn't want to be blocked.
That is a very interesting point. And in this case, I think that Jackson won't play there because he can use the H next to Fieriest for more points. But,
yeah, exactly.
But there's still a higher chance he uses it after Mulked than after a different play.
And interesting. So he goes for ETH. I was thinking he would just play Hail through the I and oh no, never mind. Easy's there now. Ignore that. Yes, this makes sense if that wasn't available. And so Jackson will take the lead right back. This is going back to what we were saying with this sort of tempo game where they're going to keep exchanging 10 to 20 point leads and will score a bit more than whatever the difference is every turn to overtake the lead. So Josh isn't wasting any more time with that Z play. He sees there aren't any more scoring spots, so he's going to play Za and Zin. So it works out for him in the end. But again, it's something definitely to be cautious of. If you're making a blocky play with the idea that you're keeping a key letter, make sure that there isn't a high probability that your opponent will take that spot. I was thinking more if you played something like Quorum off of parallelly and making Oho, Ra, and Yu, then that would score a bit. It would also leave some space open on the top left side of the board and keep the Z last turn. But it looks like it still worked out for Josh. So with Jackson now, he has all 1 point tiles, some of them doubled up. So at a minimum, he wants to get rid of the double tiles, the extra A and the extra L. We'll see if he does other tiles too with that.
And he's not behind by quite so much that he absolutely needs to bingo, but he's getting close to the point where he needs to think about having an option of bingoing at some point, because with these tiles, it will be pretty difficult to outrun and catch up without bingoing.
Yeah, so now high scoring spots left. So they're going to need to think about how do I want to be able to score in future turns without giving away too much to my opponent immediately. So Jackson has a lot to think about this turn. This turn is the type of turn that could really define the rest of the game. And G.I. Joel has pointed out some of the 8s available in the comment section. So he's pointed out Numerous, Surmount, and Corundum. Alec also has added Mournful. These are 8s for Josh, potentially. So I don't see any of that play. It looks like it basically needs to start with a D in Amandine right now. I think that's the only 8 land. Do you see any other potential bingo spots, Rafi?
Nope. Other than hooking Mulked to make an S for an S hook, but that would be a 7, and the S would need to be exactly in the 5th position, which would be pretty difficult. And there are no S's unseen.
15. Yeah. So Jackson's going to make a closed board play again. And so, but it does give no, it's ulema is a word, right? Ulama is a
Oh,
word.
he's setting up his L for
Yeah.
llama.
So he's setting up his L
Beautiful.
for llama. I don't think there's any other hooks there, right?
No, other than the U for ulama.
Is
But
ulama a word? Okay. I
yeah,
thought,
but it's difficult to start a play with a U though. So his L hook is pretty intact. I mean, Josh may block it, but it's a great threat.
it is. Yeah. So very creative play by Jackson. And these are the types of nuanced plays which really show you why some of these players who are rated over 2000 are rated over 2000. They find the little options that are just slightly better than a very good player would find, and just grinding out those little plays over time add wins to the tournament for you.
And Jackson
And
has a playable bingo if Josh doesn't block it. He has Driveler off the D.
yeah, so good for Jackson. If you're Josh here, it's really tough to play in the Ulama spot because a lot of the time you're giving up a 7 lane that goes over the triple word score. So even if you score a bit of points, you're giving potentially a much bigger score than bingos that have to start with llama or the L or U for llama or llama.
Another interesting point is that the L is actually not an amazing tile to start a word with. The L works a lot better in the middle and the end of words. So starting a 7 with an L isn't quite as dangerous as, say, starting with an S or a C or a T or an R or very many other tiles. The L is pretty low in terms of potential threats for starting a 7.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Rafi, like that's one of Rafi's skills I've noticed. He's really knowledgeable about where letters start and end most. Right, I think you told me once the N is a really bad tile to start with for eights,
Agreed.
for
It
instance.
is.
And that's the kind of knowledge I just didn't know at all, actually. And so Rafi's really sharp on those sorts of little things. And that's awesome. That's an awesome part of talking to players who are better than you. They'll often have these really, really nuanced insights that contribute to their game that you wouldn't even think about right away. So it looks like Josh is not going to make an Ulama play, but instead do a more blocky play of Unco. That actually seems pretty reasonable here, given his situation of having a tempo lead. With a blank, he has to be thinking that get rid of the high scoring bingo lane. If Dribbler comes down, we'll deal with it after. But we have a 30-point lead and potentially the bingo tiles. Just clean up the rack, lock the high point bingo lane that Jackson just put up. Also, we want to point out again, there have only been 12 votes so far for who's going to play next round. If you care about who you're watching on screen, please vote. Go to the link that was provided in the chat. If someone could provide it again, since there's been a few comments since then, that's kind of, we don't want to have people scroll too much. Thank you, Moobot. So if you see that straw poll link in the chat, vote now for who you want to see play next.
So Jackson has not set up Dribbler on his rack. He may be unsure, but it is a bit of an odd word. Easy to see, but hard to necessarily know if it's an actual word. So I imagine he's considering. Oh, he has it set up.
Yeah, so we'll see. It is one of those, a lot of the ER words you have to remember, is this actually a word or not? Right? For a lot of verbs, they do take the ER version, a lot of them don't. So it's sometimes hard, especially in game, to remember which ones do and which ones you're just being hopeful about for the purpose of improving the game, if it is true. So we'll see if Jackson convinces himself if Dribbler is good. In the meantime, Josh looks like he's getting a bit more synergy than the past few turns. So We'll see. I don't think there will be any bingos that play if Dribbler comes down for on Josh's end, but we'll see what his thought process is, I guess, in the next few months as well.
His thought process will probably be, how did Jackson find a bingo on such a tough board? Because the only spot to play is off that D.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, he'll go from thinking his win chances are very high to having to figure out how to come back. But with the blank in hand, it definitely will be possible.
Yeah. One thing to also monitor is the HO off of Hauberks and WoW. That's actually going to be a very key spot because there are a lot of front hooks for that. And if you just put one tile down, that will give a whole new 7 lane on this board. That's looking very close. So that will likely be a volatile spot that we'll see towards the end of this game. If one of the players needs to go try to create a bingo lane, that's actually very hard to block unless you have a long enough word that would fit there. So both players want to keep synergistic enough letters such that they can actually extend enough letters to cover that spot.
Jackson is probably taking his time debating whether Dribbler is good and what his win chances are if he chooses not to play it. He may think that he could still win the game by not playing it, but he knows that the whole game could hinge right now on whether Dribbler is a word or not.
Yeah, so I guess his other option would have to be to open another bingo lane. So let's say he plays row, where we're saying off of HO, keeping Revile. And then I guess what would that fish for you? Delivers
It would
off
fish
that
for
D.
Overlie or Relievo.
Right, off the R, but assuming Josh would block that, then Jackson would have the D lane still.
Yeah,
So then
and
that would be like delivers with the blank S.
delivery
So
with a
that
Y.
delivery with either of the two Ys, something like that. I'm wondering, do you see a better potential bingo fishing lane Jackson could do if he doesn't play Dribbler?
Um, I'm not seeing anything right off the bat. There's nothing that can go before the U and Unco, so he can't play a play over there to open up the top lane on the board.
And the chat points out also if Jackson bingos, there will be 2 letters in the bag only. So Jackson might even be thinking about drift and then thinking out the potential worst case scenarios after that, because that's really how to evaluate these plays. If you have a bit of time in your clock like Jackson does and think Dribbler is good, you will have a lead. No doubt about that. But then you have to think about what kinds of racks would be really bad for against Josh. The worst case scenario ones will be the ones where Josh can bingo directly afterwards underneath Tripler. So Jackson's probably looking at what types of racks that would be, how likely those are, and after those ones, so that's the worst case scenario. Jackson also has to think about what if Josh has the blank, can't bingo, but can score a lot of points with something like Sumi, like the chat's also pointing out. And then he needs to figure out his win probability in those games. The games where Josh will have a bingo to counteract Dribbler, Jackson's going to lose anyways. So he'll probably ballpark how often that will happen. And then from there, look at of the games where Josh won't bingo, but will just score a lot to make it a close game, how often will Jackson win those situations? That's how he'll try to determine how valuable Dribbler is this turn.
And he's really thinking hard about this. He spent about 4 or 5 minutes on this turn alone. Such a pivotal spot in the game. Very, very interesting here. And yes, it looks like he's going for it. Beautiful.
So he plays Dribbler. Josh is smirking because of the point Rafi said before of how in the world did Jackson still bingo, even though I've been doing such a good job blocking literally everything.
It looks like Josh is holding the play as well. And both of these players, in their many, many head-to-head games for fun have played a lot of phonies. So Josh knows that this could be Jackson just guessing on a word, and now he has to decide, was Jackson guessing on a word that isn't a word, or was he taking a long time on a real word that he wasn't sure about? So I imagine Josh will take a minute or two to decide whether to challenge or not. And if he challenges, Jackson basically wins the game.
Yeah, I think that's right. One other thing this does, so we're not actually sure how much Jackson was thinking versus sitting back, making Josh uncertain if it was a word, because Jackson could be concerned that if Josh pluralizes dribblers, that could make the game really close. So if Josh doesn't challenge but is still unsure if dribblers is valid, that might make him not want to play Sumi this coming turn.
And if he plays Sumi, Jackson, not knowing for sure if Dribblers is good because maybe he wasn't sure on Dribbler, he might now have to decide whether to challenge an S hook on his own word. Oh, it looks like it's a
Josh is
challenge.
going to challenge.
Wow.
So, as a lot of people are pointing out in the chat, because we did just switch from CSW to NWL, one difference in the two games is not just the dictionary, but the challenge style. So, it is double challenge in NWL, which means one person's turn will be necessarily lost no matter what. And in this case, that will be Josh because Dribbler is valid. Great find, Jackson. And we will see how he recovers from this because he has the lead, but there are some pretty bad tiles in the pool.
If he draws 5 consonants, the game could be interesting still. Josh might have a chance. What does he draw? 3 O's. Tough draw for Jackson.
So now let's think about it from Josh's perspective. So he has the U in Unco right now. That there's 7 spots. Yeah, so he can play an 8 with the U as the second letter as a potential bingo. He can go underneath Dribbler, but those are literally the only 2 bingo lanes right now. So if bingoing is what he thinks is his only option, he'll need to think about either how do I get rid of tiles such that those spots are highly likely, or how can I create another lane such that I have a few options of lanes. Now, Sumi and Dribblers is still available, and Josh now knows Dribbler is valid, so that could also be coming down this turn. It will be really interesting to see how Josh will handle these next 3.5 minutes on his clock. Although I keep forgetting that Jackson has his turn now again because Josh has lost a challenge.
And Jackson can't block Dribblers entirely. He doesn't have any amazing block. He can play OI on making OR for 8 points, but that doesn't really do anything. That doesn't score any points. So he's in a really tough spot here where he probably wants to block Dribblers, but he doesn't have a great option of how to do it. He might need to just find a way to outrun. But
and the chat makes a good point, which is if Josh had a bingo last turn, pretty unlikely he's challenging Dribbler this turn.
Good point.
It would be really hard for him there. Josh would have still had like a 30 to 40 point lead if Jackson bingos with Dribbler and Josh then bingos after. So I think Jackson can probably pretty safely assume Josh didn't have a bingo. So the question for Jackson now is either do I score or do I score to try to outrun automatically, or do I try to do something that avoids worst case scenarios here?
This is an extremely difficult spot.
Yeah, I guess what worst case scenarios would there be for Jackson here?
A big play with Dribbler. That's the worst case scenario.
I guess that has to be it. And Jackson agrees.
And Jackson is going to draw PP out of the bag.
So interestingly, I guess there were no A's left, but still, that does add more possibilities for bingoing underneath Dribbler by making OR. but it doesn't matter, I don't think, in this case.
So
So Jackson did empty the bag.
Josh is down 40. And
yeah, this is not actually a trivial endgame for either person. Jackson
not at
doesn't want to
all.
get V stuck. I guess he has Vug for the U and Unco. Does he have another V spot right away?
I am not seeing one. So
So
if
is
you,
Vug, could he get V stuck? This is actually really important. If Jackson gets V stuck here, I think Josh might win the game. And
and
Scrabble Kate points out that there is one winning play for Josh here, according to Quackle. I am not looking at
wow,
Quackle right now, so I don't know what it is. We'll see if Josh comes up with it. But is there a, is there another play aside from Vug for Jackson that uses the V? Vug or Gov, I guess, in the same spot.
um, wow, I don't
I
know.
think Jackson could get Q stuck.
This is amazing. Two heavyweights coming down to the end game.
Sorry, not Q stuck, V stuck. Apologies.
Josh is down under 2 minutes. The time he spent on Amandine and Tased are catching up to him a little bit.
Yeah, that's always the worry when you look for a while. Though Josh did find the bingo and Amandine eventually. So, yeah, the chat is suggesting some things around there. I'm wondering if he can use Ulama
Oh,
now.
wow. He has a great parallel play of Nursed between the N, R, and D of Annexed and Driveler and Tased.
That is
That's a lot of
redonkulous.
points.
That is a lot of points indeed. So maybe
But
does he save that and he plays Yom first?
Yom or
Yom.
Yum, maybe.
Well, he needs the U in nursed. So he plays YOM and
Oh.
Unco. I guess that gives Vig or Vog. So that gives Jackson Vig or Vog, or Ivy for that matter. But maybe
So,
keeping nursed for next turn and playing Yom this turn, that would score a bunch. Or I'm
Jonathan,
wondering, I still think a V stuck stick might be doable, and Quackle might not just see that right away. That's a bug in Quackle often. Yeah, so Yom does allow Ivy or a play with Mug like Vig or Vog, but it does still give a huge out sequence in Yom and then Nurse. So Josh looks like he might be doing the blocking method. Oh, he's
oh.
doing something else completely. That is very clever. But that Veg, I think, just blocks that, right? VEG
No,
for
because he
the
can play
most part.
ROM underneath. He can still play underneath.
He
Um,
can't do a 5, though, right? If Veg comes down.
I don't think so. Wow. Josh is down to 13.4 seconds. And when he plays the blank, he has to write down what the blank is. So he is in huge danger of going overtime. But I think he has just enough time to be able to squeak by if it comes down to that. He has Rumor up top as an outplay. He has Joram and Junko up top as an outplay.
Oh, that's fun.
But if blocking the Ayers spot ends up not leaving Jackson with an out, then Josh can just out in two. He doesn't have to go out in one play.
Right. I think that's the idea. If Jackson blocks with Veg or something, I guess Jackson has a bit of time to figure out if that's even his best block. He needs to put a letter on the right-hand side of the E and I, though, because otherwise Josh has something like Rumor. So,
Wow.
and probably needs to play off the V2, because if he blocks that E and I, then Josh could easily stick Jackson with the V. Yeah, this would be a fun game to analyze if you have more time, but Josh just didn't quite have that time in this game.
If Jackson plays veg, that will put him up by 41. Playing Rom underneath is 36 points, putting Josh only down by 5. And wow.
So Jackson plays Peepo.
Oh.
Is there another spot for Vig we're missing here? Because Josh can now stick Jackson with
Oh
the
man.
V. This looks like it could be a mistake unless we're missing another V spot right now.
Veg might just not be enough. He might have calculated. Oh, he's picking it up, and he's going to play veg.
He's going to play veg. Okay.
Good choice. Makes the game a little bit more complicated. And they're both down to under 30 seconds. Oh my gosh.
Nope.
He's changing it back to Pepo. Change it back to veg. Oh no.
What a game right now we're dealing with. Jackson can actually probably afford the 10 points.
Oh my gosh. Not. And Rom comes down immediately. And Vug comes down immediately. I don't even know the scores. I don't even know who's going to win. He writes down the blank.
Or is that an S or H?
It doesn't matter.
We don't know.
Who won?
I have no idea. This is crazy. I think Jackson might have won within 10 points.
Rom is a lot of points. Oh my gosh. And Jackson wins by 2.
So what if Josh played Dribblers and OS and kept the U there? Would he have won?
Yeah.
With a blank S?
That would have probably been enough. Dribblers would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 26.
Wow, so if Josh didn't go out there and play Dribblers at the very end, that is one crazy endgame right there.
What a wild one. Fitting for two players who have played each other so much.
What a great game. So 428 to 426 final score for Jackson. What an endgame.
And now they're probably doing a recount to make sure.
Yeah, they have to be doing a recount here. Yeah, we actually don't know if they agreed on that score also. That's one thing that is sometimes key within a game that you don't always realize from the sideline. Just that if the players are off by even like a few points here or there, they might think that the game is a completely different situation than it actually is. So if there was a 3-point difference in the game, Josh might have thought he found a winning sequence here, which isn't the case.
And now they're rehashing what would have happened if he played a veg. And one of them also took the blank and placed it right after Dribbler to make Dribbler. And
Josh just shook his head as no, like that wouldn't win. But I think that might have won.
Or maybe he was shaking his head saying, no, I can't believe I missed that.
Yeah, maybe. I guess I'm not a bilanguage expert. I interpreted Josh's head not as nah, that's not going to be good. I thought about that.
Right now, all we can see is his back, so I have no idea.
Yeah, so...
and his head is poking over the board.
So they're now discussing the veg possibility here. I think... Yeah, what would Jackson do here? That's actually really interesting, because there aren't great P spots. I guess he could play Pop.
After Rom, Josh is down by 5. So Pup would put Jackson up by 19. And with 4 points left, so Josh would need 15 points to tie with a U and a blank, which I don't think he can get. He can get, as I said, how much was Dribbler's 26, which would put him up by
so then what you do
by 7.
Well,
but OI above the P and Pup would be enough still for Jackson to win. So I don't think that Rom will win. They're actually going over that right now.
Even with Dribblers?
Yeah, because OI above pup making op and OI will be enough to win.
Yeah, but can you just
Got it.
play out?
Or
Ion,
Jackson points on owl,
but-
which is nice.
Here, I'm up.
Yeah.
I'm up 16. I'm up. Yeah, so you can't just play it.
So we're gonna stay on for a minute or two longer, but keep in mind, vote in the chat or vote in the link. Can we have that posted one more time? Just vote to see who you want to play next.
Down one. Yes,
Oh, never mind. I'm hearing from powers that be that the vote is over. It would also be great to find out who is playing next from the powers that be, but we'll let you guys keep watching this for another few
So I had
seconds here, just because it looks like there's still some cool analysis going on.
remove this play and put the blank down
Whoa. Now the Quackle
and keep the U.
file is saying that it was 424 to 424. So now it's saying it's a tie.
They're saying it's a tie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm sure there.
yeah, I'm not sure. I was not quackling this game, but I guess that was the score they agreed upon, and that actually makes sense in a lot of ways. If it was a tie, maybe they just didn't want to recount at that point.
Sorum isn't a word.
Oh, never mind. Jackson won by 2.
Yeah, we're hearing. We're luckily have some great insiders that are on the site and actually, like the silent reporter, basically. And so, the score's been corrected, but we're constantly hearing updates and such, and so we were indeed informed that Jackson did win by 2, like it initially said. Ignore that 424 to 424.
I can't.
One play that Joel mentioned was Embryo instead of I, making Bunko, which scores a lot of points. Like is a B.
Yeah, that is a very nice play. I guess where would that leave the U to go, though? I guess he would have 2 spots for it because Embryo creates a spot.
Yeah, and Run
But
and MU from Amundine or Ton. There's a few spots for the U. But the question is it enough points?
Yeah, that's a good question. Embryo does score a lot, though. It's a cool play.
I started looking at the possible thing.
Yeah.
Others are suggesting Mousy, maybe Mousy and Mulked, I guess, and that would block Vug as well, so that would have been a V-stick option, possibly.
Leaving ER.
I really do not like it.
That's
Way
probably
better.
a really nice sequence. I really like that. Mousy, I bet, is the play there.
I drew PP in
I guess, did Scrabble Kate post it, what the winning Quackle sequence is? We should probably look at the chat.
I guess because some is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Kate is going over
You can still get
some options right now,
But it looks
trying to determine if there was a play that could have won.
I don't know what.
And I think what Josh did with I was
like you could.
he didn't see a play that would have won for sure, but he was trying to complicate the game, make a big setup that would be confusing and potentially make Jackson mess up.
Oh, this is interesting. They're actually analyzing the turn before where Jackson played Oot.
I'd go up 44.
Yeah, blue game.
I think Oot's a good play. He needs to take out that Sumi spot.
Really? Yeah.
I had a win.
That's one.
Yeah, only maybe. Like, I think the V is a pretty bad tile there. Although keeping all the O's is also really bad. But
Okay, but like for
Josh basically found a way to make it a really close game and possibly even a win.
I was looking at just playing.
I think Sumi isn't the worst of Jackson's worries necessarily.
But we also knew that he would draw PP out of the bag. If you draw something like ER or EM or RM, his
I guess
options
that's
become a
true.
lot better.
Yeah, so now they're discussing Mousy. I think that's the play I like a lot. Because Mousy, what can Jackson do with the V?
12.
I guess it doesn't really matter though. Josh will go out next turn anyways. He can't slow play it.
You have 18.
Yeah. And he can't play
So-
pop. He can't play pop because then ER will come parallel to it.
28.
Yeah, so does he play Mirror and Ope? So it looks like he plays. Yeah, so Jackson put down GIP,
Oh, sorry.
which is correct, and then Mirror and Ope and RE off of Jip and Mousy.
Would that be a win?
28. you get 13?
Yeah, I don't know.
I suppose like
This is a crazy game. What a game. And
No.
I guess one thing we should mention is I think
True.
we didn't see a single mistake at the beginning of the game. And we only had some questions at the end game, which we're all still unsure what the best play is. So these two players played a phenomenal game through and through, and that end game was just crazy, and we could spend hours on it. But we do have
Yeah.
another game coming, and with that in mind, I think we should take it to break. It looks like they're going to be looking at this for a while, but we will go on break. Maybe if it's possible, they can leave the screen up, but Rafi and I will sign out for a few minutes and then come back.
All right. So great game, everyone. Looking forward to the next one and see you in a few minutes.